Hello everyone, this is POW Weather. In this update, we're going to be talking about another winter storm with a wintry mix for parts of the south as Arctic air moves in. So if you're new to the channel, click the subscribe button and notification bell to get all my daily updates to keep you ahead of the storm. Good morning everyone. This is your Tuesday morning update. And what we got taking a look at this morning as the North American view of these vorticities, they're going to be moving across. These are more or less spokes of energy in the atmosphere. You can see this developing one well to the north. That's where the cold air is right now, into parts of the Dakotas, into Minnesota, into upper portions of Wisconsin here, into the upper portions of the Great Lakes. But at the same time, we also have this other piece of energy that's developing down south, and the idea is these continuing to move across as cold Arctic air plunges southward. And if these are able to more or less merge together over the course of the week, by the weekend, this could be setting the stage for a bona fide nor'eastering that would be riding up the East Coast with a heavy ice storm and then major snowstorm up the East Coast here. But yeah, look, what's waiting in the wings back behind that. So even when this one's over with by this weekend, we've got yet another storm developing as the conveyor belt of systems are currently activated. And we're in the heart of winter, folks. We've got a lot more to come even after this event. So stay tuned. So let's take a look at the temperatures today, because this is by far going to be the nicest day of the week. With that warm sector to the south, we've got widespread 70s for much of Texas, but those 60s reach all the way to Oklahoma, as even far north into Nebraska. And there's your cold air well to the north. That's where the snow is flying right now. But tomorrow, things are going to be changing in a big way with that bona fide Arctic blast that's coming in. So let's take a look at the overall hazard advisories this morning. We've got winter weather advisories already in place for portions of Montana here, going into the Dakotas, and far extreme portions of Minnesota and the upper peninsula up the upper Great Lakes here. We've got some very high winds are going to be moving southward as well, and those are set up shop over the Dakotas, and these are just going to be expanding in the days to come. And there's your red flag warning. Man, it's been just bone dry out here in West Texas, low humidity values. With those west winds and higher temperatures today, we've got fire danger alerts out in this section of the country, so definitely be on the lookout for that. So as we move across, let's take a look at the overall setup for our initial snowstorm right now for today that's taken place into extreme portions of Minnesota and the southern parts of Canada here. And that heavier snow will be in the upper portions of the Great Lakes here. And as the system dives southward, the snow will move south with it. But by tomorrow, there's the Arctic air. So these are afternoon temperatures, about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I stopped it right here with 10 below zero up in Canada. And now those below zero temperatures are starting to creep into the Dakotas, into Minnesota, widespread 20s in Missouri, into Kansas. And there's the Arctic air reaches Texas by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. As temperature is continuing to fall, out ahead of it, you got the warm sector. So you're going to be dealing with a lot of heavier rain that's going to be setting up on the southern side, with even some strong to severe thunderstorms as well. So, but as we move southward, we've got an initial, like say, clipper system developing snowstorm in the midsection of the country. As that cold air plunges southward, it's going to be having enough lift on the northern side of some snow starting to break out in extreme portions of Missouri here, northeastern Arkansas, going into Kentucky. I don't want anybody to be surprised for this. I'm letting you know in advance. There's no surprises on this channel, so we iron out the details well in advance with some heavier snow, light to moderate snow moving through Kentucky into extreme portions of southern Ohio. On the south side, you're in the warm sector, so that's where you're going to be having some of these storms. It could be severe in and around Houston area, going into Louisiana. That's some heavier rain, guys, going into portions of Mississippi, into Tennessee, as well as on the southern side of Kentucky into West Virginia. But that cold air continues to press, and as it presses, it moves the snow a little bit further south. So now we've got that light to moderate snow in and around the eastern parts of Kentucky. That is in the overnight afternoon time frame, about 8 o'clock in the evening on Wednesday. Going into Thursday morning here with that heavier snow and moving in through West Virginia. That'll swing through portions of southern Pennsylvania as well as northern Jersey here with the rain on the south side. So let's expand the view and kind of take a look at some of these. We can fine tune some of the totals because we're only within 48 or 60 hours out of this first initial event. So yeah, there's the snow swap that's going to be setting up into portions of southern Missouri, all the way extending through Kentucky, through West Virginia, and all the way through Maryland here, going into northern parts of Jersey. And there's that initial snowstorm that we're dealing with currently right now, well to the north, up in mainly in parts of southern Canada here. But let's fine tune some of these totals on this initial little event. It's just going to be from now through Thursday. So you got Paducah about 2 inches. You got into Bowling Green about 2 inches of snow. Elizabethtown 3.5 inches. Louisville, Kentucky about 2 inches of snow. Lexington could pick up about 3 to 4 inches from this little system. Pikeville into 2 inches. Huntington about 2 inches. Even Nashville could be picking up a little dusting from this first initial system. Again, this is Wednesday going into Thursday time frame. And then as we move across, Harrisburg about 1 inch, going into Fredericksburg almost 3 to 4 inches with this system. DC 2.5, 2 to 28 inches. You going into Baltimore about 2 inches from this system. York 2 inches. You can see a dusting basically 1 to 3 inches. Dover 3 inches. Going into places like Wellington about 2 inches as we continue to move up. We got Philly about 2 inches, Trenton 2 inches, even New York City 2 to 3 inches from this system. You went into Brentwood 2 inches, Providence 2 inches, even into Boston could be picking up, ½ inch to 1 inch out of the system. This is that first initial system that's going to be developing late in the afternoon on Wednesday. Overnight Wednesday going into Thursday time frame, and this stops the clock about 7 o'clock on Thursday with that first initial snow that's going to be taking place, a good 1 to 3 inch swath. But now let's take a look at the south, because this is where things get interesting for a little bit further deep in the deep south. I'm taking a look at the relative humidity here because this can really pinpoint where the precipitation or where the moisture is going to be. And remember, this is Arctic air, guys. Arctic air is your driest air. So as it plunges south, look at the humidity levels in the midsection of the country, well into the Dallas-Fort Worth area, into portions of central Texas. That's 10-20%. That's bone dry. It's not going to have any snow or ice in that particular setup. But as we get closer to the coast, around even as far north as potentially Waco, but especially into the hill country, Austin, San Antonio, you get down here into Corpus Christi, yes, even to the Houston Metroplex, we've got higher humidity values with that disturbance that's coming across, and we could be looking at some like icy wintry mix starting to set up around Thursday afternoon going into that Friday morning time frame, because we've got plenty of cold air in place by then. These are Friday morning low temperatures, well below zero into portions of Minnesota, going into Iowa. There's single digits in Missouri. There's teens in Oklahoma, widespread 20s in Texas. We get down to the coast here. Notice the temperatures, 30, 32 degrees right along the hill country, right into the Houston Metroplex, even down as far south as into Corpus Christi, all the way down to Louisiana. So this air is freezing 20s, 28 to 30 to 32 degrees into Louisiana and Mississippi, right? So now let's take a look at the precipitation that could be happening by the time we get into that Thursday afternoon, evening time frame. Some of this could start to be changing over in the hill country of some sleet pellets falling out of the sky with temperatures starting to fall down, but below 35 degrees, some of that sleet will start to fall. And then as you get closer to the coast here, some of this could be transferring into some freezing rain. Your orange is your sleet, your pink is your freezing rain, and then of course your green is just all rain. So as temperatures continue to plunge, and as we wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning on Friday, I showed you the temperatures. They're hovering right around 32 degrees. And as the rain would continue to fall, yes, it's going to be in the form of possibly of a light freezing drizzle, freezing light rain in and around the extreme portions of San Antonio, South Texas, Corpus Christi, in and around the Houston Metroplex. Could be looking at some freezing rain or drizzle in this atmosphere. In the southern parts of Louisiana, southern parts of Mississippi, southern parts of Alabama, right? So we've got that potential. But notice the temperatures, they're only about 32 degrees. So I know that's freezing. But typically in that situation, you're more or less into the, bridges and overpass. It's not really going to be collecting on the roadways. You really need to be below 30, ideally about 28 degrees before you start to have significant problems on the roadway. So I'm not expecting like terribly too much accumulations in this area, but definitely be on a lookout as we get into that Thursday night, Friday morning time frame of some wintry mix down here in portions of the deep south is definitely on the table as this cold air will continuing to plunge. And look at the jet stream by the time we get into Friday night as this really starts to amplify and head east. And then again, we have another snowstorm that's going to be coming up the East Coast, and we could be looking at another bona fide snowstorm for parts of the area. So let's fine tune this as we move across. So we're going to have a low pressure system developing somewhere around off the southeast coast. We're talking Friday afternoon, Friday evening time span, right? As cold air will continuing to plunge southward. Look at the 540 line. The 540 line is pretty much a crucial line where it says, hey, it could be cold enough if dynamics are right, where we could have some wintry mix or mixed precipitation in that area from that point to the north. So yes, with the southward setup, you got to have all layers of the atmosphere. So obviously if it's blue, it's snowing. So that means all layers of the atmosphere are cold enough to snow. So when you start transferring to some of these pink shaded areas, that means as precipitation falls, you hit these warm layer lofts, and it's warm, so it melts the snow or sleet, and then it refreezes again on contact. So you have shallow cold air at the surface as well. So we could be looking at another icy setup in portions of the Carolinas and North Carolina as we get into that Friday afternoon time frame. We've got that snow to the north. And of course, at this stage of the game, it all depends on these two systems amplifying, right? So if they're able to phase together, we could be looking at a bona fide setup. So this isn't a guaranteed track. Again, this storm is literally in southern Canada right now, in North Dakota, right? So it has to drop all the way down south. It's got to phase together and come up the East Coast, and this is by Saturday. So we're going to be fine-tuning this. But yes, we could have a snowstorm that's coming up the I-95 corridor, coming across with some heavy snow, getting into DC, back again into Baltimore, going into Maryland, into Jersey, coming up the coast here, up the I-95 corridor. With this setup, continues to ride up the coast. And again, there's some uncertainty here as to how these systems are going to phase together. But yes, we'll be fine-tuning this in the days ahead. But it definitely appears we're going to have another snowstorm coming up the I-95 corridor along the East Coast here, with a pretty big, massive developing low pressure system off the coast with heavier snow training in its wake. And look at the isobar. That's a tight gradient there. That's indicative of some higher winds pumping in with some heavier snow right along the coast here. So, and then as this continues to move across, it's fairly a quick mover. This is already into Saturday night, right? So I think it initially starts as an ice stormer in the Carolinas, and this will ride up the coast as we get into that Saturday and then Saturday afternoon time frame. But by the time we get into Sunday or Saturday night here, Sunday morning, it's going to be into Maine and into Nova Scotia, and as the heavier snow will continue to move up. So let's zoom in and look at some of these wind gusts. Depends on the setup of this setup. So right here, this is your stronger wind gusts. That's your hurricane force winds. That's just right off the coast. So it all depends on this low pressure, the exact placement as this moves up. But yes, obviously, if it shifts a little bit further inland, that will put the heavier winds further inland as well. But right now, it looks like a lot of the greatest winds will remain offshore with this particular event. And as we continuing, this is the blend of models. You know, this far out, this is kind of your what you would use to gives you a fair estimate on some of these accumulations as far as ice. Remember, I showed you the temperatures, you know, right? So they're right around 30, 32 degrees. So a lot of this is not going to be, say, accumulating ice, but yes, you could be getting an icy wintry mix. So right now we could have accumulating ice in sporadic portions of the deep south, but then your major ice would be right along the coastal areas and around South Carolina as well as North Carolina and getting into parts of Virginia. And that would be your ice. So as far as like precipitation, so this is your setup on the blend of models through now between Sunday with, again, fairly dry for a good section of the country. The atmospheric river kind of dies down up here into the Pacific Northwest. These systems come across. You got dry air in the midsection of the country. Not really expecting anything in Oklahoma or North Texas. It starts to get activated as you get further south into central Texas, South Texas, and then along the coast here with the heavier rain. And most of this will be in the form of some mixed precipitation or some snow and ice along into the Carolinas. And then here's your blend of models currently right now on the blended view with those two systems coming in with those particular amounts right now. And yes, if you start looking at some of the GFS models, it doesn't have the systems kind of merging together. It's not as amplified as the Euro. So right now, the most, you know, accurate way to show you right now what potentially could happen, because there's still a lot of uncertainty, is the blend of models of maybe particular snow amounts up the East Coast. So yes, the Euro model is a lot more amplified. And obviously, if that takes shape, then we could be looking at a little bit, obviously, a more significant snowstorm on the table. But it all depends. And if these things are going to be able to amplify as these kind of these vorticities, you know, merge together in the days ahead. So I'll be fine tuning this as we go forward throughout the week. So I appreciate you guys watching. If you like this video, definitely leave your comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel to catch the latest update where I protect you before and after the storm.